Well, hopefully you don't have any excitement like the last cycle.
Like what?
The last selectman and some of the whole part.
Oh, I heard about that, I read it.
Yeah.
Oh. What was it?
Our last selectman, somebody took over.
Oh,
Yeah.
how exciting.
Yeah.
Our very own cyber incident.
Yeah,
Like a
it was April Fool's Day,
sitcom
so,
or
it was April first.
It was.
America's Greatest Select Board or something.
Unfortunately, that was a little bit inappropriate.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like my son in Woodbury said, that's kind of common down there, having
Really?
Oh, really?
for a kid like that.
It used to happen quite a bit when we first started COVID and when we started going online. Anyways. And then MMA sent out bulletin how to set up Zoom about that.
Well, and that's why you're supposed to watch that attendance list. And you're
Yeah.
supposed to get rid of people who don't recognize.
Or there's supposed to be a waiting room. And then you read that.
Yeah.
You know,
Right, you have to
and
go
then
in
you
and
can
say
watch.
yes.
And then there's a link here to prevent from screen sharing.
Yeah,
And that's
you
what
can keep
happened.
everybody on mute, then, I
Yeah.
mean, there are tools available.
Anyways, let's call the meeting to order, I guess. It is 5:04. And we have quorum. Before we get started, I'd like to invite Emily Rabi, from Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission to talk to us about housing strategies. And, you know, at the last meeting, you asked me to invite her. To follow up on that little survey that we did based on the Lincoln County Regional County Assessment, Housing Assessment. So anybody who talk to us about that. And anyways, I think we should,
Sure,
yeah, so welcome.
thank you.
I think we'll just hold off on the other business, like this. And we'll just put you up front so you can go home.
Oh,
and
thank
enjoy
you,
your day.
appreciate it.
Anyways, I'll just turn it over to Emily. I'm actually interested in hearing from her because I think she's an expert in this thing.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Hi, everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Emily Rabi. I'm with the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. So we are the planning commission for all municipalities in Lincoln County. We provide technical assistance on land use, housing, transportation, economic development, environmental projects, broadband projects. I'm also wearing a hat as your contracted town planner. So we have had a contract with the town of Wiscasset starting back in 2021 to provide some assistance to mainly the ordinance review committee and the planning board. A lot of the work has been with the planning board on subdivision and site plan reviews over the past 4.5 years. And so I know on the survey that you had all filled out around housing strategy, there was one about streamlining the approval process. So I'm happy to speak on that piece as well, at least from the perspective of planning. So I thought tonight, you know, I've had conversations with Aaron leading up to this. I know I was supposed to be here in February, but we had poor weather. So Aaron and I have talked about what might make the most sense, and we thought it would be kind of more of a conversation this evening, looking at the strategies that you have kind of flagged based on what we had come up with at a county-wide level. And then you assessed kind of what the town, you as an individual town might be interested in taking on. Kind of the top three, if you will, were streamlining the approval process, engaging local and other Maine-based affordable housing developers, as well as expanding local growth areas through strategic rezoning. one I would add, just looking and knowing your ordinance really well, is also looking at making some zoning changes around density. Currently in almost all districts in Wiscasset, you have a one use per acre minimum. And so when we're talking uses, that includes housing. So if you are looking to have, you know, a multifamily development or a apartment complex development, even if it's all on the smaller side, you would need 1 acre for each of those units in that development. So if we're talking, you know, an 8-unit development, you need at least 8 acres. And from a land use perspective, trying to infill some of the areas in your growth area in town, it would make sense if you considered also lowering your density. Another thing too, that's not as high up on the list, but I know the town's been working on it, and I think Aaron, actually you have it in your memo, is around accessory dwelling units. And Aaron was successful partnering with Backyard ADUs to get a grant to look at what other ordinance changes might be available to allow for accessory dwelling units. Because again, that's another way to kind of add units to the municipality, without it feeling like it's a lot of development at once. So that's a really quick overview of what I was thinking about tonight, but certainly I want to hear from all of you about what your thoughts are, kind of why you may have prioritized some of these higher, and then also happy to answer questions around what that process for any ordinance changes you might be contemplating would look like. I know that town is also in the middle of a comprehensive plan update, so that's another opportunity to take some of these longer range ideas. For example, expanding local growth areas through strategic rezoning, that dovetails really nicely with your future land use chapter in your comprehensive plan. And so with that, I figured I'd just open the floor. If you want me to keep talking, I absolutely can, but if you have questions right off the bat, I'm happy to start there as well.
ADUs,
Yes.
you expand a little. A couple weeks ago, I actually just handed a stack of materials to Aaron. I went to Rockport. There was some kind of symposium, but it was the people in the vanguard of that symposium seem to be the folks from North Haven,
Okay.
where they're using that because they don't have enough help to run the island,
Yeah.
basically. Experience on that? They've been doing it for several years. Is there a trickle down of knowledge that gives us some, I don't know, leverage to say this is a good way to go?
So it allows you, and I'll take a step back for a second. There was, back in 2022, the state created what's commonly referred to as LD 2003. It's essentially the state's housing law, which mandated that the individual municipalities add language around into their zoning ordinance that allowed for accessory dwelling units, which is commonly referred to as ADUs. How you regulated that was essentially to say that as a municipality, you would allow them wherever any single family residence is allowed in whatever district. So for Wiscasset, that's pretty much all of them. And that you didn't have to, as a municipality, you can't require more land area. So it's not like you could say, when I started saying you need 1 unit per acre, you can't, for an ADU, you don't need 2 acres minimum to have a house in an ADU. You get to infill that onto your existing property. So if I am a 1 acre lot and my principal dwelling, so my main residence fits that criteria, I would be able to put an accessory dwelling unit on my lot, so long as it meets the other setback requirements, height requirements.
And water and sewer.
Well, water and sewer, or that my septic system
Right,
and
so
well
it's big
capacity
enough.
is big enough,
Right.
or that I could put in a septic system to accommodate just the ADU. So there are some elements at play around that. The other piece that it states is that I as a municipality can't require the person to have more off-street parking for that ADU. So in most districts in Wiscasset, but not in the downtown village, you have a 2-space off-street parking requirement for housing. If I were to, again, using my example, if I'm a 1 acre property owner with my house on it, I don't have to add another parking space that is off-street for that accessory dwelling unit. I can just put it in. What the bill allowed though is for municipalities, if you chose to, you could do a couple things. One is limit the size of the accessory dwelling unit. Another
By
is
square foot or?
by square foot, yeah, or you could also do it by height too, so you could have said, you know, it's a one-story maximum, no more than 800 square feet, for example.
And that's been done.
So it's already on the books.
So it's on the books. Wiscasset chose to do in the village areas, there was a square foot maximum. In the, outside of the village districts, there was not, so long as it's smaller than your principal dwelling unit. So what you could do is if I was a property owner who had a 2,500 square foot house, I could have a 2,499 square foot accessory dwelling unit. Again, I still have to make sure that I can accommodate my septic for that. My well, you know, can meet that, that I still meet setback requirements, those type of things.
So if there's, I'm just trying to flesh this out.
Of course, yeah.
So if you were to build, say, an income producing addition to your 2,500 square foot house, that's already covered, that's.
So yeah, you can build accessory dwelling units in three ways. One is I could put it within my existing house. So say I have, I take my two-story home and I split it. So now I'm a two-family home, you know, say I split it either down the middle or by floor. So my first floor is my residence and I rent out the second floor. I could make that my accessory dwelling unit. Second way is I could do an addition, so it shares walls, but it still has a separate entrance, separate kitchen. And then the third is that it's completely detached, so it's a separate building. Whichever form you take, again, the septic piece, the setback piece, all of that still applies, but there is some flexibility baked into how I get to that accessory dwelling unit. Yep. And I think your original question had more to do with like, well, I'm interpreting it as also, how do you effectively add those properties? And I think the first part, there's a number of elements, because while accessory dwelling units from a zoning perspective are now an option, from a cost point of view, it's still another structure and possibly another septic system or an expansion of your existing septic system, drilling new well. There's costs to it, which can be prohibitive for some, you know, people looking at it. In the same sense, though, I think these ordinance changes took effect almost a year ago now, and we as a town haven't made a huge effort to kind of get that word out that this is an option for residents. We've heard, you know, a few from the planning side, and I can't speak for code enforcement. We've had a few inquiries about it, but I think there's an opportunity for your committee to go out and get the word out a little bit more. And I think part of the grant that Aaron accessed with backyard ADUs is going to help with that, because there may be property owners who have been thinking about it, didn't realize that they now have that ability, or what the rules, how it applies to them specifically on their property, who maybe once they know are gonna pique their interest a bit.
Going along with something that we've been discussing all along, which is the affordability aspect and availability. Is there an incentive for the property owner to have, from that aspect, an affordable, whatever parameters are in here, ADU?
So the LD 2003 language, when it came to ADUs, did not give any incentive for it to be affordable. Part of the piece is that we in Maine, not just Lincoln County, but all of Maine, we need more housing units. Generally, we're at a 84,000 deficit in terms of the number of housing units that we need. And so the state is looking at the ADU piece, not solely for affordability, but also even if they're gonna be rented at market rate, or if, again, using me as an example, if I'm gonna build one and I'm moving my in-laws in, that then their house then goes on the market and could bring in a family. So part of it is just the economy and the shortage in the number of units across the state to begin with. And so if the accessory dwelling unit option is available for people that want to build it to offset their income or their mortgage payment, and they're going to rent at market rate, it's still another unit in the market.
Question. If you had a piece of land, you had your house on it, you put on an ADU.
Yeah.
Later on, you wouldn't be able to subdivide that, would you?
You,
Because the ADU is tied to that.
well, you could, depending on how you placed it, because it's still, it could be turned into a dwelling unit, you know, even if it's a small dwelling unit. It would just have to be placed, you'd have to think that through when you're building it and place it so that if you were to draw a line, it would meet setbacks. And that you'd have, you know, your septic system would still be on that property access, correct? Yep, you're well.
Cause it would not, it wouldn't be on the same deed, it would be on the same deed.
Correct,
that
right.
Your home would be on, so if you were subdividing it,
Yep.
the whatever you
Gotta have,
subdivided would be.
gotta have everything that a
Mhm.
regular house would have to
Yeah.
have.
Right.
Well, I have to say, I'm excited to hear that you're supportive of the ADU, because I will say, without using any names, a past code enforcement officer and I had a big disagreement about whether or not it was allowed, and, I had a property listed actually that it made it really hard to sell because it had an apartment over the garage, and he was saying that that was not allowed. But anyway, I'm glad to hear that we're all on the same page now with this law. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I think it was meant to open up housing options. Another thing that I'm really interested in learning more about it, I don't know if you're familiar with the two buildings over in Newcastle, the two eight
Yeah,
units.
16 mils, yep.
I would love to be able to see us do something. I have a parcel of land in mind, actually. It's in town, on town water and sewer, but
Mhm.
the way that the ordinances are now, that would not allow for that, correct?
So the way the ordinances are written, if it was, again, this goes back to LD 2003. Another element of LD 2003 was allowing a density bonus for development that was designated long-term affordable. And what that means typically is a 40-year covenant on the property and the units to say that they will be rented to income qualified applicants for a period of 40 years. So even if that, you know, say I'm renting and then I leave and Pat comes in and she starts renting, that it's still gonna be rented at an affordable rate to an income qualified renter for a period of 40 years. And if the covenant is, you know, drafted and shown as part of the site plan application into the town for the building permits, you get 2.5 times the density as a bonus. So if I have a 3-acre parcel, I could fit 9 units on that 3 acres if I designated it long-term affordable. If I was not going to, if I wanted to rent them at a reasonable market rate, but didn't want to designate them, I only get 3 units on 3 acres, which from a economic standpoint, doesn't really work for a developer as well. So the density bonus helps. That
In
means,
town lots is small, it's a half acre, I believe.
yeah, in town
Yeah.
lots, right. So, but the majority of Wiscasset is
right.
an acre
It
unit,
is,
which
yeah.
makes it complex, especially if we're looking at, I was, filling in Bill, before the meeting that I was talking to a gentleman who has property on Route 1, vacant 3 acres, who has interest in putting in units. He doesn't want anything massive, but he also needs to make the economics work of the development, and, you know, 3 units on 3 acres doesn't work.
No.
And so, you know, there is that element of, in certain parts of town, it would make sense to expand that density requirement to half acre, quarter acre, especially even if you were to do it only to housing, or, you know, commercial can be a conversation as well. But the Mills Road project is exciting in Newcastle, because for a number of reasons. One, they're really attractive units. There's going to be a total when they're done of 16 units between 2 buildings. So 8 in each building, 4 on the first floor, 4 on the second floor. It ties into sewer and water. It fits within the character of the neighborhood. They have beautiful trees right on the street. There's a nice sidewalk. They kept the trees. The units, the other piece that I find really exciting is that they are manufactured units.
Yeah.
They went to a facility, KBS Builders in South Paris, Maine. They dug the foundations back around Halloween of 2024. KBS started manufacturing them in their facility back in November. By the second week of February, they were there with cranes placing them on the foundations. And then they've spent the past couple of months, you know, doing all the connections, the siding, the roofing, interior cabinetry, adding in the toilets, the sink, you know, all of that. And so they're hoping to be, start moving people in by, I think they're still on track, excuse me, for May. So it's a much shorter process than traditional stick built.
That
And they're,
same company is doing several throughout the
they
state.
are, yeah.
Yeah, it's a, I mean, it's a great
Is there an
concept.
average cost per square foot?
I haven't looked that far into it yet. I have some numbers to talk to someone about that.
We were talking
They're one
about this
bedroom,
before.
they're one bedroom units, that's the
Someone
other.
in town was gonna do a development, and then he decided to do individual low income. But his cost for each one was $320,000.
Hmm.
That doesn't work, so it has to be what they've got there, a multi-family building.
Yes.
Surprisingly enough, those are affordable housing and they're one bedroom units and they are $1,400
It is
a month is
$1,400,
what
yeah.
they are gonna be getting, so. That's, I know that's affordable nowadays, that's what's considered affordable
And-
because.
But this style, I mean, you could make it into 2 and 3 bedrooms, it's just according to how you design it and
I'm sure they
Right.
could make it however you
Right.
wanted
you just
to have.
Right.
it.
add another block.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had another project in Madison, that moved, I think. They did a groundbreaking or not groundbreaking, a ribbon cutting ceremony and had residents move in last summer. And so there's a lot of images, if you just look up, you know, affordable housing project in Madison, it comes right up and it's the same. It was KBS Builders as well as, the same, a few of the same developers that are doing the one in Newcastle.
207 had 2 nights in a row on it. One
Oh,
of them
really?
was on that particular project.
Yeah.
And the other one was on KBS.
Okay,
They actually went there and looked at how they were doing it. It was
Yeah.
very informative.
What role, if any, did the Newcastle, right?
Yeah,
Did they have in facilitating the process?
part of it was, that they have what's called a core zoning code, which is a little bit different than anywhere else in Lincoln County certainly, but most of Maine. Where we have traditional zoning, where it's by use type, a lot more zoning requirements. Theirs is more by density, and so they allow for more mixed use. They allow, especially in their downtown part of Newcastle. And so with that property in particular, they just needed a building permit. The density and the use was already something that was allowed through their zoning, so it bypassed planning board. Which helped with, I think, any potential pushback from, the common term is NIMBY, not in my backyard. And there were still some people that were in town that were frustrated that there wasn't as much of a public process as they felt there should be. No one has been against the project itself because they recognize that they need housing. It's in a nice location, it's walkable.
perfect.
It fits within the character of the neighborhood, but they were frustrated that there was not a open forum, like a public hearing at a planning board, workshop. I will say the other piece that the town was helpful in is, you know, being a champion of the project, being supportive. I think the select board and their town manager has been very supportive of the project. They were there at the groundbreaking ceremony. They're there to help answer questions if, you know, they run into any jams or try and help problem solve. It's not really theirs to own. It's the developers, but having that good working relationship with the developer seems like part of the reason why it's been successful.
So you mentioned there was like groundbreaking in October.
Yes.
In advance of that, how many months of activity was between the town and the developer I'm looking for lead times on that.
It was pretty quick, because I did talk to someone who was involved. It didn't take much,
So this was
probably,
not,
you said they.
You know,
They-
13 months and then bang.
No.
I wanna say that I started talking with the developer back in December of 23 about a grant application. He had been having conversations, he was really, he lives in town, he has a lot of property in town, in Newcastle. Really has wanted to see affordable housing in the community for a while now, and he was taken with the project in Madison and the developers that were working, and the architect that was working on that project, and so he started reaching out to them, said, I have this possible property, what do you think? I don't know how long those conversations took,
I'm thinking more of the town.
Right.
The municipal interaction.
but
before
they started, I suspect they started talking to the town before they started talking to me, but I was there to help try and find grant funding, so, I started talking to them in December of 23. They secured their funding in March or April, from two different grant sources as well as some other financing outlets and some low interest loans. And so I would say then it really ramped up once they had the funding and talking with the sewer and water districts about connections and all of that happened. In the spring, they had an agreement with KBS, I think by the spring, and then it was a matter of, kind of pulling the trigger on having contractors on site and those to dig up, that guy with the excavator to dig up the foundation, so. I don't know the lead time in terms of how long it was behind the scenes and from when the initial idea came to fruition, but I would say it was relatively quick, especially because there wasn't a huge permitting process. It was just a building permit.
It also was probably easier because across the street is other low income housing, it's a converted school. Been there for many, many years,
Oh, okay.
things are quiet.
Is this a good model?
I think it's one of many in Lincoln County. There are other projects that are happening in Booth Bay Harbor. Waldeboro is another decent example. Damascotta is another good example. So there are projects out there, and I think we've seen, the creep from southern Maine into Portland, then Brunswick, and it just keeps going up the coast. And Lincoln County, I think, is next in line, and already is. We've seen, like I said, projects at different levels. So the one in Waldeboro is at the former A.D. Gray School. They had a good working relationship with the town. The town owned that building, sold it to Volunteers of America for, I think, $1. And then, they went through the planning board process. So they didn't bypass that, worked, closely with the town planner in Waldeboro on that project. They're, trying to find funding and gain support. They also had worked very closely with town residents because it was most people's former school. And so they wanted to, kind of see what they were gonna do with that. And when it's done, it will create, I think it's 32 units for older adults. So I think it's 62 and up would be available to them. Booth Bay Harbor and Booth Bay both have projects going on. The Booth Bay one is pretty significant in size when it's gonna be done in phases. But when it's fully built out, we'll add 135 or 136 units. They have on a 30-acre property off of Butler Road. They worked with the town on creating a TIF district. They've been talking with the town about possible community development block grant funding. So again, having that support from the town has been key for these projects.
What have you found that that would help? Like, I've been trying to, just working on, putting together, I want to go out on our website, but I want to put more information there. I just gave Bill, we were just talking about it, but possible development parcels, profiles, for different lots. And then we want to put them on the website. Do you see a benefit of, have you seen a really good financing package or just good information, fact sheets for people? For developers to access and just say, okay, well, this might work for me, this might not work for me. And have I don't know, have you seen a product that helps navigate that, the financing side
Yeah.
of things?
I would say from the financing side. I would say that there's kind of different levels of developers. There's some who are more interested in what properties do you have, and I'll see if I can make the money work because they know what avenues to access, like they have contacts at, Maine Housing, banks, loan officers, like they know how to make the economics of it work. And so they're more interested in the property. So the parcel idea is a good one because they can start to see like, okay, how many units? And if you do, kind of a build out analysis and tell them like, okay, it's got a pocket of wetlands, but the upland area is this size and this is your build out potential generally. I mean, they would still have to do some due diligence, but to kind of start that process would be helpful. And they know the financing side. Then there are others who we have seen really interested in this because of the housing crisis that we have been in for a number of years now. They have property or they have acquired property and have an interest in building affordable housing development, but they don't know where to get started. And I think even just being able to say, that you are a resource for them to reach out to and have it, say, give me a call, here's my hours in the office, saying, here's information on Maine Housing, information on Genesis Fund, or even talking to the local banks and seeing if they would, be interested in putting their name and contact information on that, kind of portal on or web page on your site could be helpful. I think for those that are just stepping into this, there's a steep learning curve that the more experienced developers already know. And so trying to be a resource to be that connector to these newer developers could be more helpful, I think, than just like a fact sheet, because I don't know that there even is a good one to model. And then just even a summary of kind of what the zoning, you all in Wisconsin have a thick ordinance book. And so even just, a one pager on here's where to look, or here's how you find this information within our ordinance. And, here's what we allow in terms of the types of housing, where they're located, where they're allowed to be located, what the permitting process might look like. Maybe that's your one pager.
Have you seen anything like that you would like, that we could look at, and I'm not saying this is a copy directly, but.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know, Pat just said to me that Bath has one, and they do. Bath is a good one to look at, especially around the ADU piece. South Portland's another one, where they are promoting the ADU side because they recognize that that's a nice way to kind of infill, and it probably feels at the beginning like, okay, what's one ADU gonna do? But if you get 10 permits for ADUs in a year, that's 10 more units that hopefully can be added to the market for a renter. Or like I use the example of my in-laws came and moved into an ADU on my property and we listed their home, that's available to, a young family that might be interested in moving into the town. So, South Portland and Bath both have really good, guidebooks, I guess you could call them, that are helpful. I also know that, I'm trying to think of what they call it, but Aroostook County, they actually put out a tool, what they're calling a toolkit on affordable housing. And so it's extensive. I'm a planning nerd, so I find it really interesting, but it's about, 25, 30 pages, but talks about affordable housing and the different types and the different zoning changes that towns could make. But it's also readable for a resident to access and understand, okay, how can I, make changes on my property to help solve the housing issue?
And you touched on a couple of things that bugging me. Since you got 1 foot out the door already.
I'm still here at the county.
We talked at one time and then we didn't do anything about it. Looking at the process, if I wanted to build a house or something, the steps I've got to go through. Is there any way? Do you see any way where you can make it better? easier, more friendly. I know where I hate to say this, where I used to live, you came in and saw the planner and
Yeah.
and met everything,
Yeah.
stamped and you're gone. In other places, you go to the conservation committee, the appearance committee. And if there's no one there, you go wait another month for the next meeting and all.
Right.
Do we have anything where we can make ours better than it is?
So I've seen a few towns, are starting to look into this, and actually Vermont has a good example. They actually have come up with a. I think that the term gets overused. I think they call it a toolkit as well, but they actually work to come up with, plan sets for different houses
One-stop
that
shopping.
kind of, but essentially like there are pre-permitted or pre-approved plan types that you could, as a property owner could come in with, and it speeds up your permitting process because it's pre-approved. That building size, the plans to go get them constructed, to go take to a contractor and actually build for you are stamped. So it's just a matter of pulling a permit and making sure that you're putting it, again, within where you're supposed to, and that you have your sanitary approval, and if you're near wetlands, that's looked at as well. So that's one option. I don't know that it's a little bit apples to oranges going, because I think like Burlington, Vermont is one that's doing that, but Burlington's a bit different than Wisconsin. So, I think from Wisconsin's perspective, if there is an opportunity where we can streamline the process, or at least get the outreach out there, to property owners to understand what they can do, that's the first hurdle. Because I think what has happened, in most cases, is people walk in and they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And do I talk to the planner? Do I talk to code enforcement? Do I talk to the front office staff? So if you have a designated person, and it's probably code enforcement, especially if it's just single family residential or even a 2-family. And that code enforcement officer is well equipped to answer the questions, help with, understanding the building permit application, and gives them a checklist of here's everything you need to come back to me with, and then move through the process of reviewing the building permit, stamping it, issuing the building permit, and you head off and start. I think that the other piece to keep in mind is what I have seen, and I don't want to speak for George, but he probably will see it too, is that a lot of people have done all the behind the scenes work and already have a contractor lined up, and the contractor wants to start on Tuesday and they're coming in Monday night at 3 o'clock for a building permit. That's not really fair to the town either. So getting the word out that like, here's what you have to do for the permitting, and probably do that before you line up your contractor to start on Tuesday is also helpful.
Could you make some bullet points from us that you come in and you see this person
Yep,
and blah, 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 and if it's all right, you go here. If it's not, you gotta go here.
A flow chart.
The flow chart.
yeah,
We have something like that, and I think it needs to be updated, but. There's this book called The Guide to Doing Business.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the business part is.
Complaints I hear.
No, but here it has like a building permit process. Site
Yeah,
plan review
it's
process.
similar, but for businesses, it seems like that's what needs to be streamlined better, from what I've heard talking to people.
Yeah,
Coming into town to do a business.
there's a couple of issues here. I mean, we probably need to look at the way we handle business licensing in general here, but that's one thing. But I think we were just talking about the building permit process and how to streamline that, and the site review
Yeah.
plan. And I think,
Yeah,
we
if
just
we,
look at the,
in this building, know what you're supposed to do, would it help?
yeah. Well, I think we need to
Like,
do
come
some
in, well, you gotta
education
go
here
see
in the
this
office.
guy.
The thing that I'd like to do is, as we unfold this new website, is to put more of the stuff on the website to make it easier for people to go to and accessible. Like I said, I agree with you, the outreach is like a key cornerstone of that, and if we have like easy to read diagrams, right, kind of say, okay, you have to do this, like set a checklist. Then people can follow that easily.
Is that in our stuff? Or is that-
No, I could email to you.
Sorry to get off the subject.
No, I
Oh,
think,
that's-
I think it's
that's
still on
You did
subject,
bring
yeah.
it up in there.
Well, you did, so you're ranked highest, if I'm reading this correctly, streamlining the approval process
Yeah.
for housing was your highest out of everyone that voted.
And we don't even. So,
I would say the housing process, separate from like a larger scale development, which would require site plan review, and that is obviously larger scale means more.
I have two.
So that's a little bit different, right, right. And that's a process through the planning board before it gets to, the building, or the code enforcement officer to stamp the building permit set. But for, the person coming off the street that wants to put in an ADU or another dwelling unit, or wants to understand the subdivision process, or is even just looking to split their existing home into a two-family, having kind of a flow chart, if you will. I haven't looked at that one that's in there in quite a while, so it might be that it needs to be updated, but I think having that available to people is going to be helpful. With the Newtown website, I don't know if it has a capability, but another thing to think about is being able to file online. So fill out your building permit application online, submit your plan set online, and it saves, people a step from coming to the town office and trying to get a paper application.
There's a
or-
form.
There's there?
Yeah, we haven't done that yet, but that's one of the things that we're working on.
And it would also require, a conversation. I'm signing George up for a lot of things here tonight, but, seeing if that would streamline his process or if it would be, require more capacity would be a good conversation with George, but it is an option, as well, is to be able to file it right online.
Then you just gotta make sure that people wanna read it. If you guys want,
Which is why the checklist
yeah,
really helps to boil it down. to bullet
Westport
points.
used to have a drop down that, for better or for worse, had everything. I want I need or how do I, in just 40 things, dog license, house,
Yeah.
Change that now, but it was kind of
So
useful.
you got a permit to build a dog.
Exactly. My anecdote for the week is I'm the addressing officer in Westport, and the guy said, I've emailed you 10 times, and they called me up at the office, and they're like, you got an email from this guy? It's like, hell no, I don't have an email from this guy, so I go down there, they give him an address, and he calls back the next day, and after code enforcement said, you can't put a driveway there, he's like, I didn't know I needed any of this stuff. He just started mowing right into the trees and doing whatever, so just went back and gave him a new address, and
Wow.
that's what happens when people don't read and live in a place that don't care.
Even before they even see the code, they're gonna come up to the desk up here first and ask what to do. They have that, they hand out.
Right. We're having these conversations with the town of Booth Bay too, in that, we're working with them to update their ordinance because they find Wisconsin has a big ordinance. Booth Bay's is ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's really
it just-
big,
it
and
is crazy.
they're trying to streamline it because they recognize that someone who's coming in to get a building permit for a house should not have to flip through the site plan section and subdivision in order to then figure out what they need to do for a house. And so they're trying to do it more in terms of a scaled applicant approach. If you're coming in just to do a building permit, only focus on these sections, and they're gonna they wanna create. Once we're done with their with their ordinance changes, we're gonna work with them to create essentially a user's guide. So if you're coming in to just build a house, this is where you need to look, here's who you need to talk to, here's your application. And so again, it's that checklist that's really easy to follow, and it also, the code enforcement staff there, the town office staff, whoever comes up to them, they have that one pager that says like, here's exactly what you
They
need
have
to
a little
do.
backwards. They actually talk to someone first, be given the papers, so they can answer a few questions to get them going.
Mhm.
Give them the paper first.
I think the state does a pretty good job on their website with giving you information and links to everything that you need to go to.
Mhm.
Whenever I've had to use it, they do, I think, a pretty good job.
Communication.
Yay, we're in that business. And if anybody would like a copy of that, I have it. I printed out the one from Portland, but it's really quite large.
It's large, yeah.
So, but if you'd like an idea of, because again, I'm a big proponent of ADUs, I think with, the economy today and
Yes.
a lot of older people who are in homes that it could be very precarious for them to be staying. And if they had an ADU, that would provide additional income for them, that could help them to stay in their home. Or if you have a mother or father, or I don't know, children, whatever that, you help out family. It may provide that opportunity that. So you don't have to pay $10,000 a month in a elderly facility.
And I think South Portland, so they have their guidebook, but they also have an ADU website.
Mhm.
And they have streamlined their approval process specifically for ADUs as well. And so they kind of show you, it's, again, that outreach piece is on the website. They tell you like, here's what you have to do normally. And if you're doing an ADU, here's how it's streamlined, and you skip a bunch of steps. And it's helpful, and they also are prioritizing. I think part of their process is like, if you submit an application for the ADU, the planner and the code enforcement officer are going together to have that conversation with you, so that the two hands are talking to one another. They know from the land use perspective that it works, and from the building perspective that it works, so that you're meeting, your plumbing requirements and electrical and all of that. And so the review is at the same time, and they're all signing off on it at the same time, and it's meant to make the process faster. So again, something to look into.
So in your community, what do you think is like the, or the whole committee really, like, what do you all think that we should first target, like, what is the first, we just heard a lot of stuff. Like, what projects do we work on first? Like, what is the,
Seems like streamlining the information piece.
That would be the easiest.
so the information piece first, or should we work on the ordinance language, look at the ordinance and then how do you think, because if we change
I
the.
help people come in the door first.
You might also,
That's a simple fix, right?
Should it,
So I think that is a good first step.
you can
And then
easily
the
get it
next,
complicated, but.
well,
All right, so like work on the fact sheets, like in the sort of the outreach piece, right, is that what I'm hearing? So try and get the permits online and maybe do
The toolkit.
yeah, and the
That's
toolkits.
The
Yeah.
operative word on this thing is the toolkit.
Yeah.
I like it.
Good one.
I think you could also, you could do things concurrently. So while this committee works on that checklist piece and the education and outreach, and you start the process with backyard ADUs, in particular around accessory dwelling units, but also just pulling building permits themselves and streamlining those processes in terms of getting the word out and making it easier for the user. If you feel that the ordinances should be updated to consider changing density for housing or in certain areas of town, that process, typically for ordinance update, land use ordinance updates, the select board or the town manager assign the project for the ordinance change to the ordinance review committee, and then they work on the actual writing, take it, draft back to the select board okays it, and then there's a public hearing that the planning board holds. It's not a simple system, but it sounds more complex than it really is, but you as a committee, if you felt that density is important to look at, in addition to working on that, checklist piece, you could also go to the select board and explain why you feel that density should be looked at, and see if they would assign that to the ordinance review committee, because that's a slightly longer process in that you have to write the ordinance, but then it's also got to get on a town warrant to then be voted on by all the residents. So we have missed the June town meeting deadline, but maybe there's potential for November. Or a special town meeting, I don't know, that's really up to the select board and town manager, but again, that's another one that you could tackle at the same time as you're doing your work, as well.
So how does that work? I mean. Should we like write a letter, maybe to the select board and town manager, with like a list of. Just things that we would like to have addressed in the ordinance, and then. Let them work on it. Is that, how do you feel, like, how?
So-
Is there an initial step? Is there a feasibility? We have a wish list that we want to send forward. Some things will be more palatable, or maybe even more workable than others, so.
I just
You
want
take a
to-
sec, go ahead.
No, I just want to ask, because we have all of these ordinance, and I have talked to you a little bit about it. Why can't we pull out those ordinances that are relative to ADUs, because we have those in the ordinances, right? Then we can fully look at what we have and what we have to work with, and then we can go ahead and, you know, see what has to be done as far as, you know, does this all make sense or what? Because I think we need to have something to work off of first, rather than going off here and there. And because I know that work was already done.
So around the accessory dwelling, there was work done for sure, and I think that could be part of your outreach is to, and I think that's what the grant that Aaron secured with Backyard ADUs is around too, is looking at Backyard ADUs is a company out of, I think, Portland. Are they out of
I
Portland?
think so.
And they're gonna do an assessment on the current ordinances in terms of allowing accessory dwelling units, and could there be more changes, potential changes there? So that is probably a little bit down the road. You can certainly also take what you have in your ordinance now and do, again, that public outreach to tell people like, hey, this is in here. There's density bonuses, there's reduced parking minimums for, you know, affordable housing. There's the ADU piece that you can build. There's an additional dwelling unit piece that we haven't even talked about tonight, but that's another element of this. So doing that outreach and engagement around what you already have in there. I think that what I'm thinking of for you all, and I'm not trying to force you into anything, but if you're interested in reducing the density of that 1 unit per acre to something else, and it could be in certain pieces of the town, and I think that might be where you kind of brainstorm it a little bit before you go to the select board, is where in town do we want to see this? Do we want to see it? What might we recommend the change be? You know, is it 1 unit per half acre, 1 unit quarter acre? Is it in the, you know, along the Route 1 corridor? Is it in the growth district that was established as part of the comp plan? Even go back and read through the comp plan from 2008 to see what it talks about for density. And you could take that, you could go in one of 2 ways. You could take it to the comp plan committee and part of their future land use discussions. Or if you feel like it complies with the existing comp plan, which I know is a little outdated, but it's still your current plan is from 2008. You could go to the select board and say, you know, we've done a lot of, you know, discussions in our economic development committee. Had conversations with the county, we've, you know, had conversations with code enforcement, and we have come to the recommendation that we'd like the select board to consider asking the ordinance review committee to change the language in the ordinance to reduce density, and here's the reasons why, here's what we think it should look like. And see what the select board says, and you could submit that in writing, but then go to their select board meeting the night it's on the agenda to further have that dialogue.
Let me go to a real live one.
Okay.
As an example, and this, I don't think it's confidential.
Okay.
The owner's talking about it all over the place. Cubby hole.
Mhm.
She's got how many acres there? Quite a few.
Yeah, I don't know her acreage. off the
All right,
top of
I
my head.
thought you were involved in this. but
I was talking to her about,
She's talking about
course.
selling her house, the pub and the barn, I guess. And then subdividing the property so that she can put what you call it, a house barn,
a barn dominium.
barndominium up here. She says she needs another acre or something like that. Is that the minimum acre rule? Or has it got to do with septic and wells?
I don't think it has, so the barn dominium, I don't think it's for, it's not a condo complex, it's really, it's for the horses.
Right.
She's gonna live there.
She'll live there, so it'll be her home plus the stables for the horses.
Right.
I think what she's considering too is, and I haven't talked to her in quite a while about this, but I think she was also looking at some additional paddock and some indoor riding ring and maybe an outdoor riding ring, so. All of that, I think she needs additional acreage to fit her wish list.
Forgetting the complex thing, just if you're putting the barn dominium up there. What's holding it up? Is it the minimum lot size?
I don't know, it's been a while, so I don't know, I don't think when I talked to her, I didn't think she needed the additional acreage. Cause the way she was splitting it would have worked. I think what it was she needs an additional acre if she's going to sell off her house, the existing barn, and
That
the
needs-
restaurant.
That needs another acre.
Because it's 3 uses and she needs 3 acres to fit those 3 uses. So it wasn't so much on the barn dominium side, I
No,
think it was
I
on
know
the
that.
split for the existing uses that are there.
And that's lot size. Is that?
Yeah,
We
'cause it's
adjusted the lot size, she might be able to do that.
If you change the lot size, yeah, if she was in the district that you were looking to change, right, to change that density. So your growth area,
She got like 11 acres there, but a lot of it's useless land.
it doesn't so much apply, there are some towns that will make you calculate out some of your useless land, like if you have steep slopes or wetlands, you can't count that as part of your lot area. In Wiscasset, it's just whatever the 4 corners of the property are. So again, you might wanna consider, if you're reducing the density, conversations to have are, do we reduce it across the board, across the town? Do we reduce it only for housing? Do we reduce it only in the growth area? Which the growth area in your 2008 comp plan is described. It was never, I can't find a map for it. I've been looking
we don't
since I
know where
started.
it is.
Well, we have mapped it, but we are not an official, this cannot be counted as official, but essentially this yellow is your growth area for your
Which would be
2008 plan.
Route 1 and.
Where all the sewer and the water.
Right,
Right.
there's water, and-
Right.
that's what I'm
I
talking,
wasn't
yeah.
trying to solve the problem, I was trying to
No, that's
understand.
okay.
it.
You said reduce the density, I thought we would wanna increase the density.
Reduce the root.
Or the requirement, the density requirement.
Yeah, it's a word. Very confusing, actually.
But I was thinking that law, LD two,
2003.
had something in there that within the growth areas. You're saying it's just 2.5%,
It's 2.5 times the
so
density,
it's not, okay, that was it,
and that's if it's long-term designated affordable.
yeah.
40 years, right?
Yeah,
And all of the units have to be affordable, or is it a percentage?
it has to be at least 51% of the units.
51%.
Be the right group to be in the vanguard on this density change issue.
If it's gonna affect bringing new business, new homes, whatever, in, yes.
Okay, so
We're-
we
We're supposed to be,
we make the pitch.
we're
and then it
supposed to,
goes
well,
through
we're
the
supposed to
system.
be,
The
we're supposed to
pinball.
be,
That's what we're here for.
expanding the
right?
tax base. That's the big,
Expanding
this
the
whole
tax-
thing.
economic development, which
Right.
can be businesses
Could be
or.
businesses,
Oh, yeah,
homes.
you can do
You know,
that.
every home that
Right.
goes up, we're gonna make $4,000 or $5,000 on our property tax.
Yes.
And more than likely with the age group, we're not gonna be sending kids to school.
Well, that's why I
Well,
love
wait
those
7 years for
16
that.
units
I'm
over there,
planning on
because
having
they're
kids
one
here.
bedrooms.
No,
They're low impact to the tax base, they're bringing money in. And it's not costing the town more money for anything.
well, when they get property tax, is that reduced?
I don't know the answer to that.
I doubt it,
I doubt it.
What's the
too.
question?
whether the taxes would be reduced because it's an affordable housing, it shouldn't matter.
It's just fair market value.
Right.
I mean, you can make a,
If they wanted to, the
And
TIF,
income
you
and-
could do the
yeah,
TIF, which
totally
is what you
different
said
thing, but
Bouvet's doing.
if you
Yeah,
wanted
what Booth Bay did.
yeah, if you wanna if your assessor looked at it from an income-based perspective, then yeah, it could negatively affect the property value for assessment.
But you'd have to do something to cause that.
What do you mean? No, if it's,
Create a
it's,
gift district. or-
no,
You
no,
mean
no, I'm saying if there's a covenant that says it has to be affordable, then the property
It could
owner can
impact the
say,
value
this is the
of the
maximum that I can make, so that's
I understand.
all that you can do. And
Yeah,
then at the end of that covenant period, then that person say, hey.
Yeah.
It's worth something,
yeah,
Yes.
40 years later.
right?
it would be a percentage, it would still be, have
It'd
significant
still be
value.
something,
It'd
yeah,
be significant,
yeah.
Well, because you're getting monies in other ways, right? It's, I mean, if you, with affordable housing, you have people who are going to go to work and they're going to pay taxes on their income and they're going to buy, hopefully in your
Groceries and
Not
community.
only gets money from property tax.
And excise bill,
Excise.
Yeah.
Yeah, you figured out about
telephone
that.
poles.
yeah, don't forget,
Yeah.
right?
every little one counts.
Yeah,
But they're also shopping in the businesses.
yes,
and
I mean, that's,
They're
you know,
keeping,
that's,
yeah, they're a low impact to the tax base. It as
Right.
far as they're not costing the town, I mean, they're not,
no,
one bedroom units aren't, they don't have kids going to school, right? So they're not, we're not having.
well, I don't know.
Well, it's a one bedroom, so you couldn't,
I don't know. We had one bedroom and there was 5 of us in it.
They don't allow that anymore.
no,
Yeah, right.
Not that it isn't done.
no. In emergency situations, I'm sure it's happening a lot.
Yep. Yeah. But that's what you hope, you know, you hope that you get more people, they spend more money, they, you know,
They volunteer in the
yes,
community.
they
Might be on your
add,
ad hoc committee.
right?
Yeah. It's only positive.
Yep.
Killing us enough.
At least we've got the table of contents somewhat fleshed out for
1 through, well, I got the numbers 1 through 31, we just got to fill in.
the. Oh, it's very, very useful. Thank you.
Sure, and I'm, oh, thanks, Val.
Yeah, you're
We're just down the street, so, if you ever want me to come back, or if you have a draft letter for the select board, yeah.
We can ask you for the draft.
Coffee is always, coffee is always on.
Yes, we are here. And we're, at the county level, we're really interested in seeing housing come in because it's, our. Like, we, just like I'm sure Wiscasset is feeling, the county is feeling it too, is even trying to find, employees to come work, is we put out an offer and then they have to rescind it because they can't find housing.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing with
Real.
KW, same thing with Maine Health.
Yeah.
Everyone's going.
Yep, we've heard even from the banks and
Yep.
their businesses. So it's all tied together.
I could take on another job.
You wanna come work for us? Come be a planner? No, I gotta go, the sheriff's office is hiring if you want.
Hey, bud.
I used to be an EMT, I mean, I.
There you go.
Thank you for,
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Are you all set with me or do you want me to stick around? I don't mind.
You're welcome to that one. I put in front of you a map, and what I did is, there's in the staffing access side of the website, the GIS website. You can do like really advanced queries and stuff. And one of the queries is, I did was, I was just curious to see, where all the 10-acre parcels are. And so that's what that really like light blue, purplish color.
The
is.
light one,
Yeah, so that's all like land that's sort of like 10 acres or more. And then you can see where the lines here, the kind of like. It looks kind of like pinkish and it has the green dotted lines around it, that's conserved land. And then you can see the sewer, like, in the water, but the sewer lines are red.
Hmm.
And then the blue is the water line, so, and it has little dots. And so you can kind of see where where they go. And then, you can see the orange along Route 1 there, and that's the commercial district on Route 1, the Bath Road. And then you can see, obviously, the village, and that's where all the village 1, 2 are in that pink and deep pink, I guess, I don't know, the red. And
It's
then,
more of a blush, wouldn't you say?
Fuchsia.
Looks more spruce to me.
and then sort of the dark purple, that's the residential zone. Right there. And then there's, the rest of it's kind of just rural district. And so the growth zone, like Emily showed in her map, in that book, kind of follows the residential zone, the commercial district, and the village 1. So it's basically the areas of sewer for the most part, I mean, but you can kind of see, and then you can see where the gaps are. Where the big lots are that could be developed in those, in that growth district.
Mhm.
And you can look at like, okay, well, maybe this is a development piece and that kind of thing.
No, this is good, it's clever, I like it.
And then, of course, the yellow down by that's Mason Station. So that would be a topic of conversation. I think at the last meeting, you asked me to come up with a map, and so. We talked a little bit about. I think at the last meeting, like maybe Route 27. Making that a commercial district. And you can't really see that, but so the water and sewer, I mean. Stops at the high school. Like, and kind of wonder if they're sort of up by the. What do they call that? Convenience store,
Market 27,
yeah, I think,
Yeah, it should go all the way up to Fountain Road.
yeah. So we might consider like expanding sewer and water.
we have, the
and-
water district is spending right now using some funds for engineering to raise the standpipe that's out back of the high school to be able to have the pressure to get water to down that section.
Oh, that's great.
It seems like it's an underutilized area up there with all those sort of commercial buildings and stuff. I don't know, but that's like the area of like consideration for maybe expanding the growth district. I don't know, if that's something you wanna talk about, but
That's definitely something that the water district, that we had access planning or funding for some engineering. Because right now they've spent some money on engineering to run a main and put a standpipe in Edgecombe as part of this, I think it's called Five Rivers, I can't remember the name of the. Project.
Water Council.
Yeah, Way, different, yeah, this thing's got its own name, too, but connecting Booth Bay and Damascotta to supplies. From over here, so then Booth Bay, Damascotta and Wiscasset would all be hooked in with Bath and Brunswick. So if there was an emergency and somebody had a bad source or whatever in any of these other places, water could be pumped to the other places. So with the excess engineering, they're looking at running a line possibly to Fowl Hill Road, but then going up Huntoon Hill and then down West Alma Road and then connecting on Federal Street.
They probably always want to look.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, so that would be a big deal,
would be a very big deal.
yeah, and a lot of money.
There's a lot of linear
Miles still.
there.
No idea. We're not interested in paying it. Somebody else has to bring the money.
yeah, but the transfer station is possibly a site of a public works garage. And that's it.
Yeah, and that was another concern of eventually, because all those people have contaminated wells around there and eventually you'd like them to be on public water, not just filtered for the rest of their existence.
And then, I worked on this, actually last night, I got carried away and started working on it, started making a bunch of these, property profiles. And I picked a couple of them up the way. Of possible development pieces. And they just pass around, they're not, I didn't make copies like for everybody, but I mean, just look at them. But there's like one parcel over here that's owned by the Johnson family out of Portland. And let me just say, I haven't approached any of these people yet. So, but I, before it gets published, I will. But what I was looking at doing is like, you know, maybe putting these on the website and, you know, kind of helping them promote development. And
You gotta check with the home landowners first.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But what I was asking you, I wanna ask you is, do you think I have the right information? Should I change it? Just, you know, I mean, I'd like to hear from you about that. But this piece right here, like I said, the Johnson family. That's a huge parcel that goes between, oh my God, was the Alma Road and the Gardner Road. And that's, 124 acres.
Yeah, if you look at it though,
I haven't,
there's some swamp in there and some other things.
I've seen some ogres around here that are looking for a place to go.
and then,
What?
yeah.
Some ogres.
And then there's another place, they're all employed though, right?
They must have been my
You just don't wanna subsidize the owners and.
Right.
Yeah, she did have a beard.
Then there's a 39 acre piece owned by NT Land out of Vermont, and that's a 39 acre piece that's from the Gardner Road area. And that's just beyond like the sewer and water, but that could be a large tract of land if we wanted to develop. And then, anyways, I just,
I think Fortnite's some land on 27 now.
That's been on the market for a while.
Yeah.
yeah, something's already on the market.
Mhm.
Um,
So. Seems like we're gonna start, somebody developing would have sold it, I mean, would have scooped it up if it
Like
was.
that was on the market, and that's it seems like it's a bigger piece, but the tax card said it was only 5. Or 6 acres. And that's right on the back road. That's the one out, like the, right by Birch Point Road.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, let me know if you think that's a good idea or you guys should.
That's the one that they have, to suit, built to suit,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Cromwell.
No, it's actually, it's not listed for sale, it's built, to
Yeah.
suit. It's owned by, somebody looking to build.
Talking about across from Birch Point Road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's Bailey.
Yeah.
Clear, yeah.
but it's not listed for sale, that's a.
Lease or something.
What they do is they market it and somebody that's interested in having them build something, you know, like. An example over in Damerscott on Main Street, that the bank there, Camden National, that was built to suit. That was a property that somebody bought, and once they have a tenant, then they built the building. That's the same idea. They won't build it until they have somebody that wants to sign a 10-year lease.
It's got nice landscaping.
Yeah.
Nice housing development.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm gonna start working on, if you think it's okay, I was just curious of what your thoughts are. In Connecticut, their economic development department, the state does, this for every town in the state. I have all the data. I'm just not really good at the graphic, trying to put it into like a board document, or even that's the right tool. But they do a community profile for every town. And you see a lot of towns, like economic development offices, they put that on their website and it helps them with marketing. And then there's one town did sort of a more, I guess, easier to read type version of that.
This would be really nice, I think, to have for Wiscasset.
What I'd be curious to you is like, do you think there's any information there that we don't need or we should add? Yes. So I'd just be curious to hear what you guys think about this, as we pass it around.
Or I think it's just properties that they've identified it more than 10.
Oh.
I did. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good. Please, you're gonna get in touch with the owners and see if they want
Yeah.
to use it.
I, before the, I mean, I'd like to hear from you, it's like, if there's anything that you think that's missing on those sheets. Something in there that maybe I shouldn't put on there, you know what I mean?
When you talk to the landowner, if they're gonna go with it, ask them to look at it and see if there's,
Sure.
that's their opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sign is petition.
Oh, what do you got?
Could I stop here real quick?
Sure.
So I'm currently a sitting strong. But I'm up for. So it was. Brands. Circles, see that they will work.
Aaron, if you wanted to do something like this, you should check out Canva. It's free. You can pay for it too, but the free version, I don't pretend to know anything about graphic design and it's like graphic design for dummies. It's really simple to use, yeah. So this almost looks like they probably use Canva. So if you like the look of this and want to put this information into something like this, check it out. Yeah.
I mean, I have all that, I have all that data, it's like trying to make it look nice. and
Yeah.
Readable, understandable,
That's a whole skill set,
yeah,
No.
you know, making stuff look good.
Right.
so. So I'd just be curious if anybody, so there's a couple things that I just passed around. Anybody want to work with me on these property profiles, like look at parcels in town that we think might be marketable? And then also, maybe just making sure that this has the right information and, any advice for me to make any
I don't
changes?
remember, you have the one up near the powder house in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Churchill Land Development. I'd be curious to, anyways, I just, anybody had advice or, I worked with Kim on the brochure. And that was kind of fun, she did the work.
The food.
Yeah. Take that and pass it around. So I spoke to the main tourism associations and that was a real treat. I would have thought it would be free to the municipality to put those brochures in the visitor center. You have to pay just to put the stinking things in the visitor center.
But they're not that expensive, I mean, tourism,
Um,
that is very expensive.
So you had to pay. To be a member first, which is like $300, and then. Then you paid for the visitor center that you want. I have a sheet of it. And they have different rates for each visitor center, or you can do all 7. I wanted to start out with 2 maybe, but I'd be curious what you have to say. So I thought Kittery and Yarmouth. And then they have one, in I never say it's right, Calais.
Calais.
Calais, thank you.
Or Calais if you're in another country.
Right.
Holton,
Any other kind of.
Speak French.
and then fiber. And then on Route 95, and then south and north. I mean, if you feel that you would want to put these in all centers, or just start out small,
I think Cary and Yarmouth makes the most sense.
I agree.
what do you think?
That's
What's
what
the question?
Locations, the drops.
Yeah, where do you, which?
Kittery or Kennebunk? Kennebunk?
Oh,
Kittery.
I see, you're trying, I
It's
thought.
Kittery, I mean.
No, I know
it's-
where, yeah, I know where it is, it's just the rest stops in Kennebunk, and I don't know where you would go in Kittery.
I think they
The
call it
Kittery, they have a
Kittery.
visitor center, it's.
Oh, Kittery, you have to get off the road.
Not what I'm
Which one
talking
in
about,
95?
Kennebunk, you
Yeah.
just get off at the
right at the
rest.
highway.
And
Yeah,
then get back on again.
But there's a rest area.
There's a rest area in Kittery, off of the, yeah,
off the highway,
Oh,
you
yes.
pull off,
don't know anybody
Used
who's ever
it
been
many
there
times.
before.
I've been there dozens.
You'd be a number one, never met somebody that's never heard of it.
Well,
That's where
That
the-
would root you guys out.
when you're over 65, you'll see it.
Do they have a bathroom? Do they have 30 bathrooms there?
The moose that's down at Wiscasset Woods,
I'll have to believe
it
you.
used to be right there. And kids stop and they take their
Is it
pictures
off,
with
is
it.
it off, 94?
I know.
95?
You
It says right
Go
there,
right
there's a big
Never seen it.
stop.
Well, that's kind of up to the list anyway.
Big smoky bear out front.
I don't.
So is that what they put there now, the Smoky Bear, because it used to be the moose?
Oh, the smoky bear's been there forever, long time.
Okay, well, let's look for the Smoky Bear, guys. Lots of bathrooms.
Lots
I
of
can vouch for
bathrooms.
that.
Anyway, you
Never
want
heard
to
of such a
people
thing.
come north,
Yeah.
you don't
Yes,
need it as they're
agreed.
going south.
Yeah,
I met someone
And
there
the Yarmouth
for
is
lunch
kind of
and
in the
gone to.
coast.
Well, they used to have a discount place that was bad, but also, when I brought my wife's car, I had to stop there to get the permit because we're expired.
Hmm.
Maine, had to have someone come in, I had to get it inspected within so many days or something when we moved here, but I had to get off there. Go to the police station, I think so, and get a permit.
Well, the chamber puts, their guidebook in all of the visitor center because we belong to the Maine Tourism Association.
Just walk by and drop them in the slot and walk out.
No, you can't do that.
Yes, you
No.
can.
you can, Bill. Send you to
They run-
Find something there from Blueberry Harbor, throw it up, put yours in.
Plus our guidebook goes to, the Oceans Gateway, the airport, the railroad station, and Portland. So we do a good distribution for our members.
Yeah, more important for the restaurant guys is maybe to hit up Cod Cove Inn, Wiscasset Woods, the Marriott down, I mean, those types of places where people are staying.
You're already in the vicinity.
Right,
You might not grab them at Kittery.
Right,
Down the
right.
road, that's what, one of, if you didn't,
Right.
weren't familiar with the place, that's the first thing you look in the drawer. And all the
right.
places to eat and so on.
Then you ask them, where do you guys eat?
Yeah. They don't
And
need
those
it.
places do it for free.
Usually at none of those places.
I was actually pretty floored by that when I saw that. I was like, really? They're gonna charge us to put this thing grocery in that, but.
Don't check the bath one, because it'll really shock you. It's ridiculously expensive.
Which ones?
Bath.
Information center under the bridge.
Bath, it's,
Yeah, that one's run by,
Right, we
Main
paid,
Street,
I
yeah.
think we paid $2,000.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
We do not, the Creative Alliance does not go there.
But we don't either.
We refuse to pay that.
missing Liberty Pizza.
Yeah, we have to update it, all right.
But Creative Alliance could put an
And
ad,
they told
a
us
large
they come back
ad
after
in
wait 2
the
hours.
guidebook.
No,
And they watch them
don't.
making the sauce and.
I'm just saying, you could.
I know, we could.
Whatever they're doing, it's the best,
No.
best around.
The pictures don't look good.
Which one are we looking for?
If you have any comments on the sheriff, let me know, and if you see anything that really needs to be done,
They're the water trustees.
Is that already been updated with some of the new restaurants like, Liberty Pizza and Grounded? I already had Bob on, pulled that for me. Cool, but is there anything else that you want to add? Sorry. I want to skip over this one item. I just wanted to make sure, I want to invite you to, next week, they're holding a public meeting for the brownfield cleanup at Mason Station in Birch Point. There's a the North Point, infill area. It's like north of the station. Our plant, it's that raised model. Since we got federal money for that, we have to hold a public meeting. And so I encourage you all to.
What's the public meeting that we have?
The project, city of Mayhurst.
Just tell you what you're gonna do.
Yeah,
He's running for.
and see couple comments.
She's running for what?
It's a Zoom link only,
Qualified.
so.
More than me.
I think so.
Are you gonna circulate it?
And he's only one of two running for 2 spots.
Oh, okay.
So he's gonna do twice the amount of
And
work.
it's on the website.
He's still back.
If people are gonna proactively go and look at stuff on the website, maybe.
I do every day, it's just like stop. Stopping.
Water district
Or
trustees.
Kennebunk.
This is
I know, I can only make one.
I told them.
Next item, I wanted to invite you all to attend is the Bruce Cassett birthday celebration that the. Is working hard on that. So I encourage you to attend that. And then the other thing, we received a grant, the action grant. To conduct a waterfront vulnerability assessment. Today I met with engineers down at the waterfront for. You walked all over it and we looked at the piers and stuff. They're trying to, find the appropriate location to do their remote sensing. And, put drones up in the air. But the study basically is gonna look at the waterfront. And assess the vulnerability to the climate change and sea level rise. And then come up with a recommendation. Well, they're first gonna have like a bunch of drawings. Well, actually, the first meeting is. Right here, it's gonna be May 17th. And that means gonna just hear from everybody about what they see down at the waterfront. How they got, how they use it, what they like to see there, that kind of thing. It's sort of just like a, it's sort of existing conditions for the most part.
Here's an idea for a quick fix. You see the picture in the lower left corner here of the water washing over the now abandoned town dock?
What's not abandoned, it's still there.
Oh, yeah, well, it's just the float's gone.
Oh, we got
Put it back.
a
They
grant.
did?
They will.
They will?
Yeah, we got a grant.
Okay, you see that
I got a
light
grant.
there?
I got,
That's on the light pole. The lid is loose and it swings continuously in the breeze and you feel like you're in a Hitchcock movie because of that screeching noise.
We're literally marketing off of that. You wanna fix it?
Next week featuring the birds, yes. Bates Motel just down the road here.
let's hold worse now, the lights. You're gonna see a lot of improvements right there,
Good.
well, the first thing is for recreation up here, we got a grant, ship grant to replace 9 floats, which is really exciting. And then, the town landing. I think there's some grant money for that,
good.
to put, and you already see the floats there, that, they're wood though. And we're at the, right now, the parking lot, all that's gonna happen in May. And so that's exciting. And we just got an estimate, to replace the wood floor planks on the piers. And, that was $50,000. We have to find money for that. So that's exciting.
Excellent.
And. Oh, since I'm talking about it, but. I've been talking with a company that wants to do a, boat sightseeing tours. Pass that on. And they're very interested in Wiscasset. I gave them a proposal yesterday. Our waterfront committee, came up with a recommendation. And, I'm supposed to get back tomorrow if he's gonna accept the proposal or not. When I gave him the original structure and. My anyways. But he seemed really receptive to the new proposal that we gave him. We're gonna be talking about the supper meeting on Tuesday. So if you're,
Goals up to 17 feet.
you're interested, let me know. Like Bill said, the vote is postcard certified, we pose, 17 people, he's thinking on average, like 15 people. And, it's like a 1 to 2 hour cruise. It's kind of a nice little thing, and he wants to work with like the local businesses. So like maybe Sprague's or Red Eats, they have like box lunches, like on the cruise. The other thing is, I think this is all set, but I was approached by a kayak rental company. And they have these kiosks that they rent, kayaks. So that's exciting. And
We did have Maine Kayak down at the Cleveland Pier for a couple of years.
Yes, right, yeah.
okay.
Is that main kayak?
No, this is they call it Rent Fund LLC. It's out of Michigan.
So they're only just a rental, they set up wherever there's water, sounds like.
Well, they have them all over the state.
Yeah,
They have a different model. They have like these.
Are they on
cages.
ponds primarily,
right.
as in somebody who catches the wrong tide has no
Yeah,
idea
no
what
one-
they're doing?
No one comes up here with, doing
See you
anything
next
without a
week.
guide. For sure.
Do not go down the back river.
Don't go beyond the pier.
I think they have one back.
Wow. No,
I don't have.
no, it's not coming back.
He swept out to sea.
I'm sure
We have 4 Coffin.
they're interested in it, so.
Back river.
Stephen Bath Iron Works like no one else has ever seen.
I don't have money.
That's the rescue
Back river when the
But
tide's
there-
going out, you don't have to go.
It really
You're in
rips.
Mud flat.
Well,
for
they-
11 hours.
I mean, he said that they were gonna put sea kayaks there. So.
When Maine Kayak was here, did they just rent them? You could.
Yeah, well,
Solo,
Hans
or did you-
was,
or did you have to
Hans
go-
worked for them and he was a teacher up at Mount
Right, but
Pleasant.
did you have to go with a guide or did they just rent them?
And he rented them and he took them out for tours.
This isn't gonna do that, so this is just gonna be, there's an app on the phone. And,
Just like a city bike, you just walk
yeah,
up.
exactly,
Off the
they
rack.
actually offer a city bike program too.
Oh, the EMS budget just went up $200,000. Do you have a boat? Do we have a boat?
Yes, they do, yeah. So,
We need that.
Insurance?
One of the reasons we got the pickup trucks is to bring the boat around.
Well,
Some hard.
the nice thing about it is that there's no cost to the town. There's no liability to the town, to manage it. They just want permission on the property.
Yeah.
And
Is that
They're
in
gonna
the
share revenues.
contract that we're not liable?
Yeah, just a rescue.
I read the contract. Or Dennis has seen it. Um, We'll be talking about that in the next meeting. But anyways, I think it goes to the fact that we're trying to bring amenities to the village, which is good.
We're requiring insurance from them, right?
Yes,
Were they trying to set up on the pier or down by the yacht club?
well, the waterfront committee, I wanted to put it by the. Dennis, Ted and Larry all agreed, oh yeah, let's put it right by the harbor masters building. Waterfront committee said, no, we're gonna put it in that little grassy knoll in the parking lot right on the shore. Far end.
But down, yeah, but down toward that and not by the bridge.
Not by the,
What's the grassy knoll?
It's right at the end of the You get the,
It's not much of a
the
grass.
pier is here. it's like a-
Is that really, no, I'm sorry, it's just a little grassy.
It's a little grassy area.
That's what I was thinking
It's
too.
just a grassy spot, you gotta be able to.
They got, no,
It's a little grassy.
It's pretty close to the corporate
the
closet.
pier,
Yeah.
and you get the,
It's a bump, sorry.
toilets are over here, it's right down
It's
here.
not cemented over,
That's
okay?
where, it's some.
Anyway, so that's where they wanna put it.
What's the name,
The water
26, yeah. Take a picture of it and it shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
little 3D.
yep.
Well, they could use the lagoon.
Better idea.
Do you have any concerns? I mean, just besides the fact that somebody might get swept to sea, I guess, or?
It's all about that company's liability.
Yeah, live park.
No,
Once you get about. I'll use this map.
I mean, they're gonna be unmanned?
Yeah, there's no staffing involved, it's just that they have some sort of locking mechanism that goes in the back of the kayak.
When somebody gets to
Catches
this
over.
point, it's game over. If you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah, that's a risky part over there.
Yes.
so it'll be interesting.
Some very interesting eddies out there during the maximum tide.
There's no lot. Is that why the other? Yeah,
No, it's
No.
just hard to get interest.
no,
It's hard to get into.
he didn't have any volume.
Yeah.
You know, people were there to go to Reds or Sprague's, or they weren't,
Yeah.
I don't think Maine Kayak did a very good job of marketing. And so it was extremely slow.
Between Booth Bay and then on the other side of Bristol, they have a lot of guided day tours. Again, in Fitchburg off of, Sabasco area, they do a lot of timed tours, cause
Mhm.
it's not exactly a novice thing to just jump in,
Mhm.
though some people will.
Also on the separate agenda is, I didn't put it in the packet, but a notice about a resolution. About the federal government wants to eliminate, taxes and bonds. Municipal bonds.
Well,
How does the federal government?
how does the federal government have anything to do with
I
that?
guess they want to change the law to make it so that you are tax exempt. Anyways,
I can only see 50 states rising up as one, saying you can't.
so anyways, they're trying to fill a gap, I guess.
I think they're throwing mud at the wall and seems like
Yep.
sticks.
Well, anyways, there's a resolution, I encourage you to tell your congressman to not do that. That would have a dramatic effect on our ability to finance
Yes.
and revenue, so. Anyways,
On the other side of it, there's a whole group of people or institutions that rely on those taxes, putting those tax exempt bonds.
Yeah.
And very much part of the
Economic.
economic cycle.
well anyways, that's all I had, we can talk about the minutes, and then the other thing was, I put in the packet was a, sort of a summary in the market analysis from the NISA program. And I don't wanna go over it tonight, it's getting late, but, did you all get a copy of that plan? If you didn't, you can go online. To the town website, I created a website on the NISA program, and it has all the documents associated with the NISA program. I think it was a valuable program. And I appreciate all of you that attended that town hall meeting. What I'd like to do is maybe at the next meeting, we can go over the sheet. But on one of their slides, it's sort of like they basically gave us like the recommendations on like what the government should be doing. Municipal state. To help. incentivize these certain industries. We've been talking about housing for the last year, but there's other industries here that would go on these developed pieces like Mason Station and Bolton Road. And I think we need to like at least start looking at this and maybe decide which ones we feel are a priority. And
At that meeting, I was sitting with a group of people who were very interested in enhanced geothermal. Has that got legs here or what?
Geothermal?
Geothermal and enhanced, which is the technology, I had to go home and read about it. That they found that in fracking. Can be applied to geothermal, so you don't have to go down 5 miles to get.
I think that was David, wasn't it?
yeah,
From Peregrine that was
he
talking.
has some sort of product that he's developed. So I think he's interested in. He's got even a builder and not a builder, what do you call it, a manufacturer to help build these panels that he designed. He has a patent on. That would go with that whole geothermal.
Oh, okay.
Peregrine Technologies
Yeah, perfect.
on the
I
website.
thought there were turbines.
They do
It's
that too.
also that.
They,
Oh, okay.
they do
Yeah.
everything, they do a lot of things.
Nothing commercial yet.
Well, I think he has something now.
Are they finally?
Yeah. With these panels.
But there was a fair amount of discussion, at least where I was sitting and back and forth, because we have that 100 megawatts substation. That was the whole genesis of why this group was, because they're scattered throughout the state, these kind of, they're not stranded assets, but they're usable assets that are not being applied. Or that have more
Capacity.
applications than just one.
Right, have capacity on the lines.
Yes.
So that's what the whole point of this program was, and when I first read the notice about this, it's basically, I kind of giggled because it seemed like it was written just for Wiscasset. You know, it's underutilized energy infrastructure. And
So if you took,
we're like the poster child.
I heard in the background, if it has engineering and scientific feasibility, you do your fracking, your enhanced geothermal, you start generating power, you run it through the 100 megawatt, and we can be a net generator here. That's great. Do we get jobs out of it? Or do we go out and, the other thing on the market right now, or there are many things on the market, is to find these AI centers, which need power and water. Power to run it, water to cool it.
But they don't create revenue.
25. I looked it up for 100 megawatt.
They're not good jobs.
Yes, they are. They can rent the ADU behind your house. No, seriously, what role do we have in this?
Well, I think that's what we could talk about is.
I don't know, but I need to go home.
Quick, approve the minutes before Pat leaves.
Yeah, did anybody have any
Please.
changes to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Thank you.
Vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstained, wasn't there.
Thank you.
Who seconded? Right.
Fred did.
So the next meeting, I wanna start talking a little bit about the research program, but also I wanna to kind of begin the strategic plan process. I just wanted to like
What, did you see where it's from?
get some paper on the walls or whatever.
Sure.
Just start making a list of like, what are the most important things that we want to do.
See tomorrow, unless it's correct.
I have a meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
6:46 p.m.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't tell them,
please,
I'm short $66,000.
That thing, Inspector Clouseau, where they're gonna sink